Hello and welcome to In Which They Serve, the oral history series that chronicles the stories, memories, and life experiences of military veterans, active duty personnel, law enforcement, emergency services, and indeed any other profession in which individuals serve the public or their country. This is a special episode, and not just because it's the first ever one. The subject is my father, Alan Benneyworth, who served for 6 years in the British Army in the early to mid-1970s, becoming a corporal in the Royal Military Police. As a historian, I'd always been mildly curious about my father's military experience, but rapidly gained impetus to delve into it further when, in the summer of 2017, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and we realised that his time was limited. Spending my last Christmas with him, I wanted to record some of his life story in his own words. Back then, I had no ambitions for it other than to be anything than a personal family archive piece, certainly not the subject of an oral history series or podcast. That's why it was simply recorded by placing an iPhone between us on the sofa while dinner was being prepared in the background. As a consequence, the audio is not as polished when compared to the future episodes in this series, but I think it's effective enough to do the job. The job in question relates to my father telling the story of his military service, from being a junior soldier to joining the Army's motorcycle display team, to his service in Germany and Northern Ireland, where he survived a bomb blast by the skin of his teeth, thanks, in no small part, to a simple twist of fate of going to the toilet at exactly the right time. This is one of the shorter interviews of this series, but I think it still offers a fascinating insight into my father's military life, and I hope by sharing it, not only will it prove interesting to listeners, but also provide a fitting remembrance for him. Thank you for your service, Dad.
What about growing up in Southampton then?
Well, I didn't, did I really? And I left Southampton at 15. Growing up to 15, I suppose. But in them days, you could leave school at 15. So they'd come up to you at 14 and ask you what you wanted to do in terms of a career. I just said I want to join the army. So they'd take you out of the mainstream, because it was O-levels and A-levels, and O-levels at that stage, so years, 15 and 16 would be the 2 years, and then you take your exams, but because you'd shown an interest to leave and follow another career, they just put you in what they call a school leaving grade, as it were, where they used to teach you, taxes, basic do-it-yourself, learning to live life outside, as it were, And then I went into the army at 15 and came out at 21. And there you go. That was that done.
I thought you were older when you came out.
No. Done 2 years in Ireland, 2 years in Berlin. Well, Helmstead. Of which 8 months was spent on the motorcycle display team in this country. So I was 14 months-ish in Germany and just short of, I think it was 22 months in Northern Ireland.
So why was it the army then that appealed straight off the bat?
Well, I was in the Army Cadets, wasn't I? So I'd had a taste for it. And thought it'd be a challenge. So I went to recruiting office and they said, right, sent me off to, I can't remember whether it was Sutton Coldfield or wherever it was anyway. It was a 3-day selection. We did medical, physical, aptitude, educational and all that sort of thing. And then they came back and said, right, we're going to offer you a position for the Grenadier Guards. I said, you can shove that. I don't want to be a grunt. Oh yeah, it's only because of my height. Yeah, but I said, well, no, I'm not doing it. Oh, well, okay. Right. I said, well, thank you very much. I'm not going to go as a grunt. Initially, I was going to go as a marine engineer. But they said I was colourblind on green. Although we later proved I wasn't. So it was again back to that. We've got vacancies to fill wherever we want to fill them, and we'll come up with some bullshit. So they said, no, you can't be a marine engineer because you're colourblind on green. I went, nah, I'm not.
What, like the Royal Marines?
No, marine engineer. Fixing, like a Royal Navy engineer.
But with the army.
But with the army, because they had their own fleet of transport, auxiliary transport vehicles as in ships, landing craft and all that sort of crap, so yeah, wanted to be a marine engineer, but that didn't transpire. And then basically as I'm walking out the door, they come back and said, well, you could be a military policeman. Well, yeah, that'll do for me. And as we've discussed many times before, the qualifying points system for military police and intelligence is the highest scoring on the exams. So I must have had the highest score going to be offered that, although they offered me Coldstream Guards grunt. It just showed I just stood my ground. So that was that, and because I was only 15 and a half, couldn't go in the man service obviously. So I went to Kimmel in Botherweather. I was there for just over 12 months, was it?
What was that then?
Botherweather was they've done away with them now. They used to have junior leaders regiment, which was basically infantry type thing, and junior tradesman regiment. And there was Oswestry and Botherwithan, and then Botherwithan, Kimmel, by the church there, was the three trades they used to teach was clerical, driving, and signals. And obviously I went on to the clerical from the MP side of things and all that.
So was it kind of almost like a place to put you on the shelf until you're old?
No, it was trade training. You still done the trade, as it were, that particular trade. Although in my particular case, because I was going to the MPs, signals would have been handy. Driving would have been handy, but you do that as a matter of course when you're in anyway. So I was then when I went down to Chichester, the basic training depot for the military police. I didn't have to do the 6 months course, but I didn't have to do the 6 months because 10 weeks of that was basic military training. Well, I'd already done that. Obviously.
Where did you do that? Was that before you went to Botherwithan then?
No, Botherwithan first.
Right.
So obviously you do your trade, in my case clerical, but you do all your military training.
As well.
That's all, obviously the trade training, you'd be bored with that running 24/7. So yeah, you've done all your basic soldiering skills and things like that.
So it's almost like a combination of phase 1 and phase 2 wrapped up.
Similar to your sort of thing, I suppose. Yeah, but that was initially a 10-week course, and then it was a 24-week course for doing the military police training. So it was 6 months basically. I didn't have to do the 10 weeks, and of the 6 months, I only done 5 because I was a switched on cookie, you see. And then so many weeks were was it 2 weeks to weapons. I'd already done them. I was qualified, so there was 2 weeks saved. Driving was allocated for 3 weeks. I passed mine in 1 week, so there's another 2 weeks knocked off. So basically, in 5 months, I'd done all my police training, done all my exams, and passed out, and then got posted to Berlin. And when I arrived in Berlin, they said, "Oh, you're posted to Helmstedt," which was deemed to be a punishment posting for some reason. it was a detachment of Berlin guys, as it were. So I was there for 20 months, but prior to that, because I was so young, I had to re-sign on at 17 and a half. That's when man service then was acceptable. And that's why they couldn't technically send me to Ireland, so they sent me to Berlin. And then during that time was when I applied for the Army Air Corps. I told you the story behind that one. And then I applied for the motorcycle display team, which was an 8-month detachment back into this country in Aldershot. But we're travelling all around the country doing displays and things like that. Went back, finished my time in Helmstead, and then got posted to Ireland. Yeah, it was pretty much full on for just short of 2 years. I enjoyed my job in Ireland. Good challenge. Very good.
Any particular anecdotes from Germany?
No, not really. Got me heavy goods while I was there, because I used to have a recovery vehicle, massive thing. And the system there was, the job entailed basically 4 things: man checkpoint alpha, man the control room where we were based, as it were, just down the road, a sweep patrol, as they used to call it, up to Berlin and back, under the terms of the agreement, a train, an aeroplane and a car, road, rail and air. There had to be at least one movement in a 24-hour period. So in our case it was drive up to Berlin during daylight hours, so the times varied between winter and summer, stay overnight and then come back the next morning, so that was deemed to be one movement. And then the other job was you had to be on standby for recovery, or to go with the recovery staff, because they were military, be it military vehicles or civilian, military personnel in their own private vehicles. If they broke down on the motorway, we'd have to go and recover them, because obviously they were in East Germany then. We were just the escort as the police. And then they made a case for the fact that of the 2 mechanics they had, they were on call 24/7 really, they got no time off. So it was agreed that 2 of us would learn to drive the vehicle, not operate it, but drive it. So, and we had to take it out. It was an ambulance and a recovery vehicle. So those basically were our 4 jobs, and we just done it on rotation. And in terms of anecdotes, no, not really. The obvious one springs to mind while you're travelling up in the car. You were spying, looking for all the Russian vehicles, type of vehicle, registrations and all that sort of thing. Although it was technically frowned upon. If you were caught doing it, you could be arrested. Anyway, we were coming back and we saw a load of Russian tanks manoeuvring. So we pulled over to get the information. And then I noticed on the other side of the autobahn was a East German civvy police car came across the central reservation and come back towards us. And I looked in my mirror and you could see a little camera mounted on the dashboard. And they said to me, mate, watch out, don't get caught, they're going to take a photograph of us potentially spying. So I just jumped out and got my cock out and started having a piss, pretending that we had to stop because I had to have a piss. So somewhere in the realms of the archives will be Benneyworth Jr. stood there with his cock in his hand having a pee.
Wasn't there like fencing along the
the actual border, yeah, but you'd have to, you obviously do your homework. You had East Germany, West Germany.
I mean, along that route, the road and rail route.
Oh no.
It was just open.
No. You crossed the border into East Germany because you were military and/or you were sponsored, as in family, would be sponsored by the military. You had to go through the Russians, all your paperwork and all that crap. So you went to the Russian checkpoint as opposed to the East German civilian checkpoint. Or they were like that. But once you got through the checkpoints, it was just the road, various motorways up to Berlin. It was 106 miles from where we were. So, but you couldn't do it in too fast. You couldn't speed because the limit was 62 miles an hour. That was the speed limit in East Germany at the time. And depending on the size of your vehicle and the type of vehicle, determined whether you could do 45 or 55 or 60. Of course, if you arrived early, you would have been speeding, wouldn't you? And all we used to do, we had Opel Admirals, 2.8 litre, flat 8, super fast cars. So we used to just put our foot down and pull into a lay-by and have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, little snooze, and then off we go again. Make sure you didn't arrive before your 2 hours was up, otherwise you'd been speeding, even though we were speeding. So nothing more boring than sitting on a motorway at 62 miles an hour for 100 miles. So, but I was just playing games on it. In terms of anecdotes, really, there wasn't nothing really to write home about. It was just a job. You got on and did it. Slightly boring.
What was the average day like then? Well, for the MPs in general, for you in particular.
What, Helmstead?
Well, I mean, yeah, well, wherever really, Germany initially. What was the average day?
Germany, well, Germany was Germany, wasn't it? You're just doing a job. We weren't. Our job didn't involve, although if we were required, we would have done. We weren't policing the military, as it were. We were policing the autobahn and documentation for people to travel through East Germany to Berlin. And that was, we were there to help people rather than hinder them, you know. So pretty much every day, nothing exciting. Arguably, you could say slightly boring. But of course, mine was broken by 8 months on the motorcycle display team, which probably on the road about 6 months of that, all over the country. That was interesting. It was good. It's a good laugh as well. Well, you've seen the photographs of the.
What was their nickname again?
Huh?
Helmets, wasn't it? Or what was their nickname?
No, just the Royal Military Police display team. The white helmets were the Royal Signals display team. They've just been disbanded, as it happens now. But ours was horses and motorbikes. Tent pegging, as they called it, with lances and all that sort of thing.
So what did that involve then? Like your time on that?
Just riding bikes between horses, under horses, horses jumping over you. Just to demonstrate to the general public how a police horse can work and not be fazed by traffic or motorbikes or anything like that, you know. And then, as with all mounted personnel in the military, going back to the old days, they used to have lances. And to practice spearing people, for want of a better expression, they used to practice trying to hit what we call tent pegs, but not. It was basically 4-inch by 6-inch boards painted white, and it was to practice hitting them for their lance drills and that. Well, of course, time moves on, doesn't it? So the modern equivalent was motorbikes. We overtook the horses, although they still had a mounted shrew. So you'll have a competition. And, horses versus bikes, that type of thing. But yeah, that was quite interesting, travelling around the country. So I went back, finished me
Did you
time.
have to have a wander around West Berlin or East Berlin or the wall?
Went into East Berlin, but you had to take a load of women, wives. So I had to drive all the way up to bloody hell, up to Berlin. Then you had to go through Checkpoint Charlie into East Berlin, where you could buy crystal and things like that, Bohemian type crystal, and really the top notch stuff for peanuts. You know, bear in mind their exchange rate was 10 marks to 1. Well, 1 West mark, 10 East marks. You know, so yeah, you were picking it up dirt cheap. That's the only time I ventured in. But yeah, we were up there on average twice a week, overnight, because we'd done the sweep patrol. That was 365 days a year, except Christmas Day. It was the only time we didn't do a sweep patrol. Or did you? No, you didn't do a sweep patrol, but the corridor was still open for travellers. So, yeah. And then after that, I posted off to sunny Ireland.
What was that like?
Enjoyed every minute of it. I was sent to... well, first of all, you got to do what they call the knit and nert course. So we were posted to Ballykinler. We do a week knit, which is Northern Ireland training, riots, and all that sort of thing. And then in our case, because we were policemen, we had to do an additional week to bring us up to speed with the laws, the civilian laws in Northern Ireland, because we were sworn in as special constables. So we were police officers in the true sense of the word. And then I went from there and I was posted to Portadown. So I was there.
Whereabouts was that?
Portadown is roughly south-west-ish, not quite as far, below Belfast. So if you had 3 RMP companies in Belfast. You had one covering the south of Ireland, which was us, and you had another company up in Londonderry. But if you go onto your map of Northern Ireland, if you draw a line east to west from Lisburn, which is just south of Belfast, draw a line across, our patch was all of Southern, and our particular job was Mobile Task Force. Whichever unit phoned up said they needed support, or they were short of men, or they needed some special operations, we would be going. So we were all around Northern Ireland on a regular basis, doing different jobs, different times, different circumstances. And then in the last, that went on for 14 months, was it? Something like that. And then they decided to move us out of Portadown to Armagh, because the SES were coming in to take over in Portadown, or take all our accommodation.
Was Portadown relatively quiet, or was it still bandit country?
No, Portadown was fairly quiet, but all south of there was bandit country. And then obviously we went to Armagh, which is another big barracks. And we were then subdivided into, one was allocated Newry, one was allocated Portadown, and the other one was allocated Dungannon, 3 towns. And what we had to do was go into the towns. In our case, Newry was our town, where you do foot patrols 6 days a week. So you drive down and you would do The idea was to police the area, put a police presence, and then eventually, when he sort of started to bring it under control, he'd hand it over to the RUC, Ulster Constabulary. But that's where I finished off, really. I think I'm just short of my last 6 months. We were on Newry, and that was a bit of a ball-aching job. Just a pain in the ass. Foot patrolling. And that was bandit country. Hence the bomb that went off. I got shot at a couple of times. Nothing to write home about. Goes with the territory, didn't it? You know? But every day was different, except for those last few months in Newry. It become a bit monotonous in the end.
What was the story of the bomb again?
It was a day of hoax bomb calls. So throughout the day we'd be in the local barracks in Newry. Call would come in. Just had a call that a bomb's been left at so and so. So off we would go. We'd have to check it out to make sure, and then if that was the case, bring the ammunition technician officers in, bomb disposal. But otherwise, you know, they'd be here, there and everywhere, so we'd have to check the place out first. 99% of the time then, they were just false alarms, people stirring the crap basically. And it was about mid-afternoon. I'd gone for a Jimmy dump. My job was sniper cover. No, it wasn't. My job on that day was I was driver. But the boss, the sergeant, he was the sniffer. He would be going to search to see what bombs there were. My job was to protect him. Cover his back, quite literally. So wherever he went, I went. So I'm within 2 meters of him all the time, watching his back, you know. And this particular day, because I was on the toilet, call come in, bomb at player so and so pub. So Colin, who was the third member of the crew, jumped in to the driver's seat, turned the car around, ready. So by the time I hoiked my trousers up and everything, off we go. I'm in the back seat now, which is sniper cover. So we just agreed that I'll carry on doing the sniper cover. Colin would go with Dave to do but he wasn't used to working with Dave the way I did. So I stood across the doorway to the pub, keeping an eye open, and Dave went in. But Colin stayed outside by the door instead of going in with him. See, I would have gone in with him. Just as well, really, because the bomb went up there. Just a massive big ball of flame. And I'm across the road, I just ducked. Got a few singed hairs, you know. And I went, Dave's had it then. So Colin was, because obviously the flame and all that comes out the door, he got a little bit singed, nothing drastic. So I went and grabbed him, dragged him back to the car, threw him in the car. And while I'm doing that, Dave comes out in the middle of this on fire. So, not literally in flames, but smouldering. And so I went, shit. So I went running over and grabbed him. And his rifle, they used to have plastic stocks on them, they'd all melted and everything, that's how, you know, and he was bits of clothing left on him. And so it was a right mess, basically. But of course, with his shock and adrenaline, he wasn't feeling any pain at this stage. I grabbed him, took him back towards the car, got the fire gate boys just douse him in water and keep dousing him in water. In the meantime, I'm trying to get the ammunition out of his pocket because it's smouldering. My pocket started going off. And then the rest is history. As it were, off they went to the hospital, and that was that. Yeah. So, but I was lucky that day because I would have been in there with him when it went off. Had I not been having a dump. Funny how fate works, isn't it? Yeah. I wouldn't be worrying about what I got now. I think it would have virtually been over. So he was lucky. He was very lucky to be alive, but he wasn't lucky when you see the injuries he was left with and the pain and everything else. But, yeah, so that was the only major incident. A few riots. Yeah, bring it on.
And what was it like being in those?
Fun. Yeah, fun. You know, the best you can do, you Paddy. Yeah, come on.
All around shit thrown at you.
Bricks and bottles and Molotov cocktails and shit like that. It's all part of the fun, wasn't it? You know. You're young, you don't care, do you? Nothing like a bit of riot to have a bit of pastime. But we only ever had two. And it wasn't really a riot, it was actually directed at us. Because we were where we shouldn't have been, so it serves us right. We were snooping and sneaking up, trying to listen, get some information. We got caught a bit short, because that's the end of the meeting there. Everyone dispersed and, oh shit. All started to come our way, oh shit, let's go. So they started bricking us and all sorts, but yeah. Every day was different, it really was.
I mean, it's probably completely different world over there now, but I mean, at the time, did it still feel like a bit of a normal society, albeit with unnormal things going on, or did it feel like you were in an occupation zone, or something like
See, it was different for us because we were posted there for 2 years. It was a normal tour of duty. Unlike the average grunt was posted there for 3 months. That's all we done was sleep, shit, and just 4 hours on, 4 hours off, 4 hours on, 4 hours off, patrolling the streets, and that's all they did for 3 months. Whereas we were allowed to, we did a normal shift system, 2 days, 2 nights, 4 off, and that sort of thing. And we were allowed to go wherever we wanted to go. Anyway, within reason. Certain areas you don't go. So it was just like a normal posting for us. So, yeah, we just treated it as such. Like I said, places you would go and places you wouldn't go. But, yeah, so say no 2 days were the same. And one day you were chasing them down somewhere, other times you were setting up checkpoints, other times you were searching places. That was the only time where a particular guy was within a millisecond of me taking his head off before I squeezed the trigger. And we'd been patrolling, and this sergeant, it was a right dipstick, he really was. He used to do these vehicle checks. A vehicle going the opposite bloody way. So the information came through that it was what we call a stop one, which is a priority, been involved in. So we all turned around. By the time we'd done that, we just caught the tail end of the vehicle shooting up a farm track. And the track was a good 300 metres long before it opened out into the farmyard and all that. And this guy was wanted. But of course he had the head start, didn't he? So we got up there, and wherever he disappeared, we couldn't find him. We searched the farm, searched all the pigsties, blah, blah, blah. And we were there for, must be a good hour, if not longer. Well, it's now known, isn't it? You've got to patrol, so you've got to be cautious. They'll be setting up a ambush for you. So we were going back out down the farm track slowly, and there was a couple of guys walking. The next thing, right across the bottom of the track, the car pulled up, and it's now getting semi-light, semi-dark, that in between, And he just got out and he went like that on his car, on the roof of his car. And of course, in the semi-light, you think he's got a pistol. So I just jumped out of the car, cocked it, and was just ready to blow his head off. But he then put like that. That was the closest I got to taking one out.
You kind of wonder why he didn't put his hands up in the first place, really.
That's why he was doing it, to see if somebody shot it. And well, actually, because he did that, one of the guys that was on foot patrol got a bit nervous and he sort of crapped himself, and he was cocking his weapon, but he had a negligent discharge. which went flying past the other guy that was just in front of him because we were staggering. They missed him by about a metre, thank God. So the guy's doing that, and then he heard boom, and he went. So, but had he had a gun, then the minute I would have seen the flash anyway. The minute he squeezed it, I would have taken him out. He was well in his sights. So, but that didn't happen. So yeah, about the only exciting thing that really happened.
Sounds like it was a reasonably quiet 2 tours then of Germany.
Yeah, I mean, the summer went on most days, but it was only routine stuff at the end of the day. In terms of incidents, on average, one a day, you know, on average. Of course, then in between times, you'd be popping here, there, and everywhere to rearrest the IRA prisoners and taking them to the RUC for handing over and all that things. Just policing duties, really. Patrol.
Right, going to be putting it out in a minute now.
Okay, assisting the RUC and so on and so forth. Sometimes we do joint patrols. But yeah, it's routine.
Leave it at that for now then.